Amy Harrison pressed her nose against the transport shuttle window, watching stars streak past like silver ribbons. Her father had told her this year would change her life. The Galactic Diplomatic Academy accepted only the best students from across known space, and somehow she had made it in. Her heart raced with excitement as the shuttle began its final approach. "Attention passengers," the automated voice announced. "We are now arriving at Station Gamma 7. Please collect all belongings." Amy grabbed her bag, double-checking that she had her acceptance letter. The paper felt smooth between her fingers. She had read it so many times the edges were starting to wear. Her father, Ambassador Harrison, had been so proud when the letter arrived. He said this was humanity's chance to show the galaxy what Earth could offer. As the station was massive, all gleaming metal and bright lights. Amy followed the crowd, looking for signs pointing toward Academy shuttles. She found a terminal with several boarding gates. Above Gate 12, a sign read, "Academy Transport." Perfect. Amy joined the line of beings waiting to board. The other passengers were impressive. A creature covered in dark blue scales stood ahead of her, easily 8 feet tall. Behind her, something that looked like living crystal hummed softly. Amy smiled at everyone, though most of them seemed too focused on their own thoughts to notice her. The shuttle ride to the Academy took 3 hours. Amy spent the time reading her welcome packet and practicing basic phrases in Galactic Common. She wanted to make a good first impression. The other passengers were quiet, some sleeping, many others staring out windows with serious expressions. Amy figured they were probably nervous too. She tried to start a conversation with the scaled being beside her, but he just grunted and turned away. Maybe he was shy. When the Academy came into view, Amy gasped. It was built into an asteroid, with tall towers of dark metal reaching up like claws. It looked ancient and powerful, nothing like the cheerful campus photos in her welcome packet. But then, maybe those photos were of the interior. Old buildings could be beautiful in their own way. The landing bay was enormous and dimly lit. Amy stepped off the shuttle and immediately noticed how cold it was. She pulled her jacket tighter and looked around. Signs directed new students toward registration. Amy followed the arrows painted on the floor, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Registration was held in a large hall that reminded Amy of a military bunker. Long tables were set up with data pads and stern-looking officials. Amy got in line behind a creature that appeared to be made of writhing tentacles. When her turn came, she approached the desk with a smile. "Hello, I'm Amy Harrison from Earth. I'm here for orientation." The official, a being with too many eyes and chitinous plates, tapped at his datapad. "Harrison, yes. Dorm assignment, Theta 9. Roommate already arrived. Next." "Wait, could you tell me where—" "Next!" Amy stepped aside, clutching the small chip he had given her. A helpful map display showed her the way to the dormitories. As she walked through corridors lined with weapons displays and battle banners, she thought about how serious everything looked. Her father had mentioned that diplomatic training could be intense. She had not expected it to feel quite so military, but different cultures had different approaches to education. Dorm Theta 9 was at the end of a long hallway. Amy touched her chip to the door panel, and it slid open with a hiss. Inside, the room was large and sparse. 2 sleeping platforms, 2 desks, 1 bathroom. And sitting on the far platform was the biggest reptilian creature Amy had ever seen. The being was at least 7 feet tall with dark green scales, amber eyes, and a ridge of spines running down her back. She wore some kind of armored uniform and was sharpening a blade that looked longer than Amy's arm. When the door opened, those amber eyes locked onto Amy with an intensity that made the air feel heavy. Amy smiled and waved. "Hi, I'm Amy. And I guess we're roommates. This is so exciting." The reptilian being said nothing. She just stared, her pupils narrowing to slits. Amy took that as surprise, maybe even shyness. She walked to the empty platform and set down her bag. "I've never shared a room before," Amy continued cheerfully. "I have some decorations in my bag. I hope you don't mind if I put up a few pictures. Oh, and I brought snacks from Earth if you want to try any. Do you like chocolate? I wasn't sure what foods other species eat, but chocolate is pretty universal, right?" The reptilian's grip on her blade tightened. She spoke in a low, rumbling voice. "What are you?" "Oh, sorry, I should have introduced myself properly. I'm human. From Earth. It's in the Sol system, kind of out toward the edge of the galactic arm. We only made first contact about 50 years ago, so we're still pretty new to the whole galactic community thing. Human, the word came out slowly, like the reptilian was tasting it. I have not heard of your species. Yeah, we're not very well known yet. That's why I'm so excited to be here. My dad says education is how we build bridges between cultures. Amy started unpacking, pulling out a small photo of her family and placing it on her desk. What's your name? And what should I call your species? I want to make sure I get it right. I am Crix. I am Saurian. Crix had not moved from her platform. She watched Amy unpack with the focus of a predator watching prey. You're very small. I know, right? Most species are bigger than us. Humans are kind of average-sized on Earth, but we're definitely on the smaller side out here. Amy pulled out a string of decorative lights. Oh, do you think these would be okay? I like having soft light before sleep. Helps me relax. Crix's tail twitched. You are not afraid. Afraid? Why would I be afraid? This is going to be amazing. Learning about diplomacy, meeting people from all over the galaxy, making new friends. Amy turned and grinned at Crix. I'm really glad you're my roommate. I was worried I might get stuck with someone unfriendly, but you seem really nice. For the first time in her adult life, Crix felt genuine confusion. She had trained for years to attend the Predator Academy. She had fought her way through selection trials that killed half the applicants. She had earned her place among the galaxy's most dangerous warriors. And now her roommate was this tiny, soft creature who smiled like they were at a leisure colony instead of the most brutal military institution in known space. Either this human was the greatest warrior Crix had ever encountered, hiding her true nature behind innocence, or she was genuinely unaware of where she had arrived. Crix was not sure which possibility was more terrifying. The next morning, Amy woke to the sound of a loud horn blaring through the dormitory. She sat up quickly, nearly hitting her head on the shelf above her sleeping platform. Crix was already awake, strapping on pieces of armor with practiced efficiency. Is that the breakfast bell? Amy asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Crix paused, her clawed hands frozen on a buckle. That is the assembly horn. All first-year students must report to the training grounds in 15 minutes, so there are consequences for being late. Oh, like detention? My school back home had that too. Amy jumped down from her platform and quickly changed into her academy uniform. It was made of some kind of flexible gray material that felt tougher than it looked. She ran a brush through her hair and splashed water on her face. Ready! Crix stared at her. The human had prepared for formation in less than 5 minutes, while some of Crix's combat brothers took 20. She said nothing and simply headed toward the door. Amy followed close behind, practically skipping. The training grounds were a vast open space under a reinforced dome. Hundreds of students stood in neat rows, representing dozens of species Amy had never seen before. There were beings with fur, scales, chitin, and some with skin that seemed to shift colors. All of them looked strong and dangerous. Amy found her place in formation next to Crix, still smiling despite the serious atmosphere. At the front of the assembly stood a massive insectoid creature with 4 arms and eyes that gleamed like black mirrors. His exoskeleton was scarred from what must have been countless battles. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the grounds without need for amplification. I am Headmaster Vorn. You are here because you represent the finest predator species in known space. This academy will transform you from simple hunters into apex warriors. We will break you down and rebuild you stronger. Many of you will fail. Some of you will not survive. Amy listened carefully, taking mental notes. The headmaster certainly had a dramatic teaching style. Once she had read that some cultures valued harsh motivation techniques. It was different from Earth's educational approach, but she was here to learn about diversity. Your first trial begins now, Vorn continued. You will be transported to a hostile environment simulation. You will have no supplies, no weapons, no assistance. You will survive for 48 hours, or you will be removed from this academy. This is not a test you can study for. This is a measure of what you are. The students around Amy shifted nervously. Some growled low in their throats. Others flexed claws or mandibles. Amy wondered if this was some kind of trust-building exercise. Her father had mentioned that the best diplomats needed to stay calm under pressure. Transport shuttles arrived and students were divided into groups of 20. Amy ended up in a shuttle with Crix and several others, including the tentacled being she had seen at registration and a creature that looked like a walking pile of rocks. Nobody spoke during the short flight. They were dropped into a swamp. The air was thick and humid, smelling of sulfur and rotting vegetation. The water was a sickly yellow-green color and bubbled ominously. Twisted trees with black bark grew at odd angles from murky ground. As soon as the shuttle doors closed, it lifted off, leaving them alone. Several students immediately began searching for high ground or materials to build shelters. Amy looked around with interest. The swamp reminded her of a nature documentary she had watched about Earth's prehistoric wetlands. She knelt down and carefully tested the water with her fingers. It tingled slightly. Acidic, but not terribly strong. "What are you doing?" Crix hissed, pulling Amy back. "That water could burn through scales." "It's okay, it's pretty diluted. See?" Amy showed her hand. The skin was slightly pink but unharmed. "I went camping in some acidic hot springs once with my dad. The trick is not to stay in contact too long and to wash with clean water after." Crix stared at the human's hand. On her world, water like this would cause serious burns, but the human's soft skin showed only minor irritation. What kind of death world did humans come from? Amy stood and surveyed the area. "We need shelter first, then water purification, then food if we can find any. Oh, and we should stay together. Groups survive better than individuals." A massive being covered in dark fur laughed. "The tiny one thinks she can lead? Oh, I work alone." He stomped off into the swamp, pushing aside trees with casual strength. Amy shrugged. "Okay, but the offer stands if anyone wants to team up. I'm pretty good at camping." Crix found herself following the human. So did 3 others, including the tentacled being and the rock creature. They introduced themselves as Vexus and Gronk. There was also a feline warrior named Shira, who moved with liquid grace. Amy led them to a cluster of larger trees with broad, waxy leaves. "These leaves look water-resistant. We can use them for a roof. And see how the ground is slightly elevated here? Less chance of flooding." She began gathering fallen branches, testing each one for strength. The others watched in fascination as Amy wove branches together, creating a frame. She showed them how to layer the leaves to make the structure waterproof. Within 2 hours, they had a shelter large enough for all 5 of them. "Now for water," Amy said. "We need to collect rainwater or find a way to purify what's here." She found a large leaf with a natural cup shape and positioned it to collect condensation. Then she dug a small hole, lined it with leaves, and began a slow filtration system using sand and charcoal from a burned tree. Vexus spoke through a translation device. "How do you know these techniques?" "Oh, my dad loves camping. He says it's important to understand basic survival because you never know when technology might fail." Amy smiled. "Plus, it's fun. There's something nice about working with nature instead of against it." As night fell, the temperature dropped rapidly. Most species in the swamp began to struggle with the cold. Amy showed her group how to huddle together for warmth and use leaf blankets for insulation. She told them stories to keep spirits up, describing Earth's diverse environments and the different survival strategies humans had developed. Crix lay awake long after the others slept. She watched Amy, who had volunteered for first watch despite being the smallest and seemingly most vulnerable of their group. The human sat cross-legged at the shelter entrance, humming softly to herself, completely at ease in an environment designed to break warriors. Crix had fought in arenas. She had hunted dangerous prey. She had proven herself in blood and fire, but she had never met anyone quite like this human who treated a survival trial like a pleasant camping trip. Either humans were the most delusional species in the galaxy, or they were something far more dangerous than anyone realized. In the morning, Amy woke everyone with news that she had found edible fungi and caught some kind of aquatic creature in a trap she had built during her watch. She cooked them over a small fire, having somehow created flame using friction and dried moss. The other groups were not doing as well. By the end of the first day, 3 students had already activated their emergency beacons and been removed from the trial. The large, furry being who had mocked Amy wandered back to their shelter just before sunset. his fur matted with acidic mud and his pride clearly wounded. Amy welcomed him without mentioning his earlier words and offered him some of the roasted fungi. His name was Barack, and he ate in grateful silence. Almost the second day brought new challenges. The swamp's temperature rose dramatically as twin suns climbed overhead. The humidity became almost unbearable. Amy showed her growing group how to create shade structures and use wet leaves as cooling wraps. She rationed their purified water carefully, making sure everyone stayed hydrated. "You have done this before," Shira observed, her cat-like eyes studying Amy with curiosity. "You moved through this place like you were born to it." Amy laughed. "Not really. Earth has lots of different environments, so humans had to learn to adapt. We're not the strongest or the fastest, but we're pretty good at figuring things out." She adjusted a leaf wrap on Gronk's rocky shoulder. "How are you holding up? I know the moisture can't be comfortable for your mineral-based biology." Gronk rumbled in surprise. "You know of my species? I read about crystalline silicon life forms in my prep materials. Your people prefer dry climates, right?" Amy smiled. "We should keep you in the driest part of the shelter." Across the swamp, other groups were struggling badly. The acidic water had caused injuries. The heat was draining energy from species adapted to cooler climates. Fights broke out over resources. More emergency beacons activated, their bright flares cutting through the humid air. Amy's group, in contrast, had developed a routine. They worked together, sharing tasks and supporting each other's weaknesses. Vexus used his tentacles to gather materials from hard-to-reach places. Gronk's strength helped build more substantial structures. Shira's hunting instincts located food sources. Crix provided security, her warrior training keeping watch for dangers, and Amy coordinated it all with cheerful efficiency. On the morning of the third day, Headmaster Vorn himself arrived at the swamp to observe. He walked among the remaining groups, his insectoid face unreadable. When he reached Amy's shelter, he stopped. 6 students sat together, looking tired but healthy. They had clean water, adequate food, and a sophisticated camp that showed careful planning. "You," Vorn pointed a clawed arm at Amy. "Human, you organized this?" Amy stood and nodded. "We all worked together, sir. Everyone contributed based on their strengths." "And you determined these strengths how?" "I just asked what everyone was good at and what they needed help with. Then we figured out how to fit the pieces together." Amy gestured to the camp. "Key Crix is amazing at security and threat assessment. Vexus can reach places the rest of us can't. Gronk is incredibly strong. Shira has the best hunting instincts I've ever seen. And Barack knows a lot about reading weather patterns." Vorn's mandibles clicked together. "You have treated a survival trial as a team-building exercise. Isn't that what it is?" Amy tilted her head. "I mean, in real situations, working together is usually better than working alone. At least that's what my dad always taught me." The headmaster said nothing more and moved on. But Crix noticed he spent longer observing their group than any other. That evening, when the trial officially ended and shuttles arrived to collect students, only 37 of the original 100 remained. Amy's group of 6 all passed together. Back at the academy, a word spread quickly about the human who had turned a brutal survival test into a camping trip. Students whispered in the dining hall as Amy carried her tray, still smiling, still seemingly unaware that she had done anything unusual. She sat with her swamp group, who had now become her regular companions. "Next challenge is combat assessment," Crix said quietly. "Hand-to-hand trials against other students." "Oh, like sparring?" Amy took a bite of something that tasted vaguely like chicken. "I took some self-defense classes back home, and I did dance for years. That helps with balance and movement." Borak nearly choked on his food. "Dance? You think dance will help you in combat?" "Sure. Dance teaches body awareness, rhythm, breathing control, and how to move efficiently. Plus, it's fun." Amy grinned. My instructor always said the best fighters are the ones who enjoy what they're doing." The next day, combat assessments began in a large arena. Students were paired randomly and fought until one yielded or was unable to continue. The matches were brutal. Claws raked across armor. Massive beings threw each other across the arena floor. The medical team stayed busy. When Amy's name was called, the arena went quiet. Students leaned forward to watch. The human who had survived the swamp was about to face Thorax, a crustacean warrior with 6 arms and a shell that could deflect blade strikes. Thorax was known for his aggression and had won every sparring match in his previous training. Amy walked to the center of the arena in her training uniform. She looked impossibly small next to Thorax's armored bulk. She bowed respectfully, as something her father had taught her about showing respect to opponents. Thorax interpreted it as mockery and charged immediately. What happened next would be discussed in the academy for years to come. Amy did not try to block or match Thorax's strength. Instead, she moved. Her body flowed like water, slipping past his multiple fists with precise timing. When he overextended, she used his own momentum against him, redirecting his force rather than opposing it. She spun beneath his guard, stepped inside his reach, and used techniques that looked more like performance art than combat. Thorax grew frustrated. He increased his speed and power, but the human remained just out of reach. She was breathing calmly, almost rhythmically, while he was starting to tire. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Amy demonstrated something they had never seen before. Efficiency over power, patience over aggression. Finally, Thorax made a critical error. He committed too much weight to a downward strike. Amy sidestepped, placed one small hand on his shell, and used a precise application of leverage to send him rolling across the arena floor. Before he could recover, she was there, her hand extended to help him up. "That was a great match," Amy said, still smiling. "You're incredibly strong. I've never sparred with someone with 6 arms before." "That was challenging." Thorax stared at the offered hand. In his culture, helping a defeated opponent was a sign of such superiority that it bordered on insult. But the human's face showed no arrogance, only genuine respect and friendliness. Slowly, confused, he accepted her hand. Instructor Zara, the feline warrior overseeing the matches, marked something on her datapad. Her tail twitched with agitation. The human had just defeated one of their strongest first-year students without landing a single strike, without drawing blood, without even breathing hard. And she had done it while smiling. That night, Crix found Amy in their dorm room, practicing the same flowing movements she had used in the arena. "What is that?" Crix asked. "Just some stretches and forms. Helps me stay loose." Amy transitioned smoothly from one pose to another. "Do you want to join? It's pretty relaxing." Crix watched the human move with grace that seemed impossible for a species without a tail for balance. "Amy, do you understand what you did today? Had a good sparring match? You defeated Thorax without hurting him. You made a warrior submission look like a dance." Crix's tail swished. "Everyone is talking about you." Amy stopped and looked genuinely surprised. "Really? I hope I didn't embarrass him. He fought really well." And that, Crix realized, was perhaps the most terrifying thing about humans. They could be deadly without even realizing it. The summons to Headmaster Vorn's office came 3 days after the combat trials. Amy received the message during breakfast and assumed it was about her academic schedule. She arrived at the imposing dark metal doors carrying a small container. "Come in," Vorn's voice rumbled from inside. The office was vast and decorated with weapons from 100 worlds. Battle banners hung from the ceiling. Vorn sat behind a desk made from what looked like the hull of a warship. His forearms were folded and his black eyes fixed on Amy as she entered. "Good morning, Headmaster," Amy said brightly. "I brought cookies. I used the food synthesizer to recreate my grandmother's recipe. They're chocolate chip. I wasn't sure if your species could eat chocolate, but I figured it was worth trying." Vorn stared at the offered container. In his 300 years of military service, no one had ever brought him cookies. He took one carefully, examining it as if it might be a weapon. He took a small bite. The sweetness was unexpected and surprisingly pleasant. "Sit," he commanded. Amy settled into the chair across from him, her feet barely touching the floor. She looked around the office with genuine interest. "Those weapons are beautiful. Each one tells a story, I bet." "Amy Harrison." Vorn set down the cookie and pulled up a holographic display. "I need to ask you something important. What do you believe this institution is?" "The Galactic Diplomatic Academy, sir. My father helped arrange my acceptance. He said it would be a great opportunity to learn about interspecies cooperation and conflict resolution." Vorn's mandibles clicked slowly. And the survival trial? The combat assessments? How did you interpret those? Practical training, I assumed. Diplomats need to understand different environments and how to handle pressure. And physical fitness is important in any field. Amy smiled. The teaching methods here are definitely more hands-on than Earth schools, but I appreciate learning by doing. The headmaster was silent for a long moment. Then he turned the holographic display toward Amy. It showed the Academy's official designation, mission statement, and curriculum. Amy leaned forward to read. Her eyes grew wider with each line. "This is the Galactic Predator Academy," Vorn said quietly. "We train the military elite from the most dangerous species in known space. We do not teach diplomacy. We teach advanced combat, strategic warfare, and survival in the most hostile conditions imaginable." Amy's mouth opened, then closed. She read the display again. Then she looked down at her uniform, really seeing the insignia for the first time. It was not the olive branch and star of the Diplomatic Academy. It was a set of crossed blades over a shield. "Oh no," she whispered. "Oh no, 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 the shuttle station. I must have gone to the wrong gate. Station Gamma 7? But there must be a Station Gamma 6 or 8 or something." Her face went pale. "I'm so sorry, Headmaster. This is so embarrassing. I'll pack my things right away. I can't believe I wasted your time like this." She started to stand, but Vorn raised one clawed hand. "Sit, please." Amy sank back into the chair, her cheeks burning red. "I'm really sorry. My father's going to be so disappointed, and I probably took a spot from someone who actually belonged here." "You passed the survival trial," Vorn said. "You defeated Thorax in combat. You scored in the top 5% of your class on every assessment so far." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Amy Harrison, how does a human from a species we barely know accomplish these things by accident?" Amy thought about it. "I don't know if I'm particularly special, sir. Humans are kind of generalists. And we're not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest at any one thing, but we're adaptable. We learn quickly, and we're really good at working together and finding creative solutions." She paused. "Also, Earth is kind of a difficult planet. Lots of different environments and challenges. So we had to develop skills just to survive." "Your world is hostile?" "Well, we have earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, extreme heat, extreme cold, active volcanoes, and a whole bunch of animals that can kill us, plus diseases and radiation from our sun." Amy shrugged. "But it's home. We love it." Vorn processed this information. Humans came from a death world and did not even realize it. They treated lethal challenges as normal obstacles. They smiled at danger because danger was simply part of their everyday existence. I have consulted with my staff," Vorn said. "We would like you to stay." "What? But I'm not supposed to be here. You have passed every test designed to identify the galaxy's most capable warriors. You have done so using methods we have never seen before." Vorn's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. "Your approach to problem solving is unique. You find peaceful solutions where others see only conflict. You build teams where others compete. These are valuable skills even in a military academy." "But I don't want to hurt anyone," Amy said quietly. "I know. That is precisely why you should stay." Vorn pulled up another display showing footage of Amy's combat match. "You defeated Thorax without causing injury. You won through efficiency and control, not through violence. In real combat situations, the ability to neutralize threats without killing is a rare and precious skill." Amy bit her lip, thinking, "What about the Diplomatic Academy? That's where I'm supposed to be. We have contacted them. They are aware of the situation. They have proposed an arrangement." Vorn showed her a communication log. "If you complete this term at Predator Academy, you will receive credit toward both programs. You would be the first being to train in both disciplines simultaneously." "Both? I could do both?" "The galaxy needs beings who understand both peace and combat, who can fight when necessary but prefer not to, who see enemies as potential friends." Vorn's voice softened slightly. "Your father wanted you to build bridges between species. Perhaps this is how you do it." Amy sat quietly, processing everything. Around her, and the office weapons seemed less threatening now. They were tools, each with a purpose, just like the skills she was learning. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll stay, but only if I can keep trying to do things my way. I would not have it any other way. As Amy left the office, Vorn watched her go. He activated his communicator and connected to his instructors. The human stays, he said. Adjust your teaching methods accordingly. We are not just training her, we are learning from her. 6 months passed like a storm in a dream. Amy threw herself into her studies with the same cheerful determination that had confused her instructors from day one. She attended advanced combat theory classes and diplomatic history seminars simultaneously. Her schedule was brutal, but she never complained. Instead, she organized study groups that brought together students from both academies, creating friendships where none had existed before. The changes she brought to Predator Academy were subtle but profound. Her techniques for conflict resolution without violence became known as the Harrison Protocols. Instructors began teaching her methods alongside traditional combat training. Students learned that sometimes the best victory was one where everyone walked away alive. Crix had transformed the most. The fierce Saurian warrior who once only understood strength through dominance now understood strength through balance. She still trained hard and fought well, but she no longer saw every interaction as a battle to be won. Amy had taught her that showing mercy was not weakness. It was the ultimate display of control. You changed my life," Crix told Amy one evening as they sat in their dorm room. "I was going to become just another soldier. Now I understand there are different ways to be strong." Amy looked up from her studies and smiled. "You taught me things too. You showed me that having the ability to fight makes choosing peace even more meaningful. We learned from each other." The final examination came on a cold morning when both suns were hidden behind clouds. All senior students gathered in the grand arena, which had been modified for the ultimate test. It was a simulated first contact scenario, the kind that could determine whether species became allies or enemies. The scenario was designed to be nearly impossible. Students would face a hostile alien species that communicated through aggressive displays and territorial posturing. Standard protocol taught that overwhelming force was the only response such species understood. Most students prepared for combat. Amy studied the briefing materials carefully. She noticed details others missed. The aggressive displays followed patterns. The territorial posturing had rhythm and structure. It reminded her of ritual dances from some Earth cultures, where seeming aggression was actually a form of communication in testing boundaries. When her turn came, Amy entered the simulation arena alone. Holographic projections created an alien environment filled with sharp, crystalline structures. 3 massive, simulated aliens materialized, each one bristling with natural weapons and radiating hostility. They roared and postured, making threatening gestures. Amy did not draw a weapon. She did not take a defensive stance. Instead, she watched their movements carefully. Then she did something that made the observing instructors lean forward in shock. She began to mirror their movements. When they raised their arms in threat, she raised hers in the same pattern. When they stomped and roared, she matched the rhythm with her own voice and steps. She was not mocking them. She was speaking their language, showing she understood their communication style. The simulated aliens paused, confused by this response. Amy continued, adding variations to the pattern, introducing elements that suggested cooperation rather than conflict. She was improvising a dialogue using movement and sound, the same way dancers communicate with their bodies. Slowly, the aliens' aggressive postures shifted. The simulation was sophisticated enough to respond to creative solutions. Amy's approach had triggered protocols designed to test diplomatic flexibility. The aliens began to respond to her movements with less hostility and more curiosity. By the end of the 20-minute scenario, Amy had established a basic communication framework with a species everyone else had fought. She had turned potential enemies into curious neighbors. When the simulation ended, the arena was silent. Headmaster Vorn stood from his observation seat. In 300 years of conducting this examination, no student has ever achieved peaceful contact with that scenario. They are programmed to respond only to strength. They did respond to strength, Amy said softly, just not the kind that involves weapons. I showed them I was strong enough to learn their language and brave enough to approach without fear. That's a different kind of strength. The crowd of students erupted in discussion. Some were skeptical, others were thoughtful, but Crix, Vexus, Gronk, Shira, and Barak stood and began to clap. Soon others joined them. The sound grew until the entire arena echoed with applause. Graduation day arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. The ceremony was held in the main courtyard where representatives from militaries and diplomatic corps across the galaxy had gathered. Amy wore a unique uniform that combined elements from both academies, a symbol of her unprecedented dual achievement. When her name was called, she walked across the stage to receive 2 certificates. Headmaster Vorn presented the Predator Academy Commendation. Ambassador Yella from the Diplomatic Academy presented her diplomatic certification. Both leaders shook her hand. She and cameras captured the moment for galactic news feeds. Amy was asked to give a speech. She stood at the podium, looking out at thousands of faces from hundreds of worlds. She took a deep breath and smiled. When I first arrived here, I thought I was going to learn how to talk to people. And I did, just not in the way I expected. I learned that strength comes in many forms. Physical power is one kind. But there's also the strength to show kindness when others expect cruelty. The strength to build bridges when others build walls. The strength to smile at danger and find friends where others see only enemies. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Being deadly is not about how much damage you can do. It's about having the power to cause harm and choosing not to. It's about being dangerous enough that you could destroy someone, but being wise enough to help them instead. Humans have a saying, the most powerful weapon is the one you never have to use. Amy looked at her friends in the crowd. I came here by accident, but I stayed by choice. You taught me that warriors and peacemakers are not opposites. They are 2 sides of the same coin. Thank you for letting me learn from you. Thank you for learning from me, and thank you for showing me that even in a galaxy full of different species, we all want the same things: safety, friendship, and a chance to make tomorrow better than today. The applause was deafening. After the ceremony, Amy was approached by Ambassador Yella, a crystalline being who shimmered in the sunlight. We have a proposition for you, and a new position has been created in the Diplomatic Security Corps. You would work on first contact situations, providing both protection and peaceful outreach. You would be partnered with a Predator Academy graduate who shares your philosophy. Crix stepped forward wearing her full military honors. I requested the assignment. Amy's face lit up. We'd be working together? If you accept, Crix said, someone needs to make sure you do not accidentally befriend every dangerous species in the galaxy. That sounds perfect. Amy laughed and hugged her friend, who no longer flinched at displays of affection. 3 days later, Amy and Crix boarded a sleek diplomatic vessel bound for the frontier regions. Their first assignment was to make contact with a reclusive species that had refused all previous diplomatic overtures. It was considered a dangerous mission. Most ambassadors had declined. Amy stood at the ship's viewport, watching stars stretch into lines as they entered faster-than-light travel. Crix stood beside her, checking weapons she hoped they would not need. Are you nervous? Crix asked. Amy smiled, that same bright smile she had worn since her first day at the wrong academy. No, I'm excited. Every new species is a chance to make a friend. Every challenge is a chance to find a creative solution. And every mission is proof that the galaxy is bigger and more wonderful than we imagine. You are either the bravest being I have ever met or the most optimistic. Maybe both. Amy turned from the viewport. Ready to go make some new friends? Crix's mandibles clicked in what Amy had learned to recognize as saurian laughter. With you, and everything is about making friends. Is there a better way to be? As their ship jumped to the next system, carrying the galaxy's most unlikely diplomatic team toward their first mission, a message was being transmitted across known space. It was a memo from the Galactic Council updating the registry of known species. Humans were no longer classified as an emerging species of minimal threat. They had been reclassified as diplomatic predators, a new category created specifically for them. The notation read, approach with caution, extremely dangerous due to persistent optimism, adaptability, and tendency to befriend anyone. Consider highly valuable for peaceful conflict resolution. Warning, may convince you to completely rethink your approach to warfare. In dorm rooms across Predator Academy, students were learning the Harrison protocols. In diplomatic training centers, ambassadors studied Amy's first contact methods, and somewhere on the frontier, a human who had walked into the wrong academy was about to show the galaxy that sometimes the deadliest weapon was simply refusing to see enemies and insisting on finding friends instead. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. And Amy Harrison, smiling front-row student who had accidentally enrolled in warrior school, was proof that sometimes the best way to change the galaxy was simply to be yourself and never stop believing that everyone deserves a chance at friendship. The mission logs would later note that their first contact was successful. What the logs did not capture was how Amy had greeted the reclusive aliens with homemade cookies and genuine curiosity, or how Crix had stood ready to protect her friend while secretly hoping she would not be needed. They were not needed. They never were when Amy was involved. Because sometimes the most revolutionary act in a galaxy built on strength was choosing kindness. And the human who smiled at everything had learned to turn that simple choice into her greatest power.